It wasn't me. It's whoever's channeling through me right now.
Well, tell him to
Um,
back up. You're coming at me pretty hot, okay?
Hello and welcome to Frequency Broads. I am Victoria.
And I am Tara, and we are so happy that you are back with us today. We are going to get started with some breaths. And what I mean by that is we're going to inhale, but on our exhale, we're going to make that juicy and that is to resonate with our own body to say, yes, we are here. I feel you. I see you. I support you. And with your hands, I'll have you clasp them together, squeezing as if you're squeezing someone that you love, and then switching and alternating the positions of the fingers. So start by just gently squeezing the hands. You can bring a sway to the body. And we're going to take an inhale in through the nose and out with a And another one just like that. And on this one, I want you to release it out with a sigh. And begin to shake out your hands. And I want to shout out one of our teachers, Jocelyn, for bringing this practice to us, this coming back and cradling the body with our voice, with our hands, with our sway. This is what we want to cultivate, this community within ourselves, this community within those around us, and as a collective world, because this episode, we are talking about how we step into the new world, right? What kind of new world do we want to cultivate? So before we get in there, Victoria, for you, when we're talking about the new world, what do we mean by that? What does that look like to you?
The new world looks like we all understand what free will is. And if you don't know what free will is, it is one of the laws on this earth that states that you have a choice in what you do, what you consume. Everything involving your energetic body is your choice. And so free will gets a little tricky when you start to think about things like fate and destiny, and then mix in societal programming and whatever religious upbringing you grew up with, beliefs of your parents, all the things that we have talked about in previous episodes about, kind of shedding the shit of other people. And so free will looks like you, your truest essence, showing up in all its divinity and exercising its sovereignty. And I mean, look at us now. I think the new world looks like us being able to laugh at ourselves and caring about the things that matter and no longer caring about the things that just don't, frankly, don't.
Or that we're told that matters. Yeah. For me, it's very similar, right? This new world is about bouncing off what we said last week, right? Constantly being in a state of enough, not being programmed to say we're not enough or not have enough, and to be able to choose the frequencies that you experience, whether that be your lifestyle, your relationships, your job, as well as the choice in the medicine that you give others, right? So having this choice that is truly aligned with your truth and just really living in a state and enough so we can share and give and cultivate together.
There's a whole lot of talk about what isn't working, what is crumbling, which seems like it's about every damn thing right now. And as someone who seems to be pretty calm amidst the chaos, Tara, what do you think are like the top 3 things that you're looking forward to seeing crumble?
Whew, that is a really big question. Um, some things that I'm looking forward to crumbling overall, oppression. And I mean for all living things. That means the earth. That means, as a vegan, that means animals. That means indigenous cultures, queer people. Just the oppression of not letting people live their truth is something that I feel is the biggest issue. Or I shouldn't say biggest, but one of the biggest issues, right? That's stripping people of who they are. So a main one for me is just learning to live in a just world for all beings, all energetic beings. And it encompasses so much, right? Like, I'm not here saying that I have so much knowledge of policies and how things really run in the government. I kind of keep myself kind of very separated from all of that. And it's a privilege to be able to do that.
Truly.
But just the overall idea that we are squashing our truest and most potent medicine by being authentic, by not allowing us to be authentic.
I think the idea of money, and as it relates to an energetic exchange, as well as capitalism, as well as white supremacy, as well as patriarchy. Money is one of those things that it's like, I don't know why this keeps coming to mind, so I'm just going to say it to let it out. But money to me is sort of like that saying where it's like, don't hate the player, hate the game. Like, money is the type of frequency. It's what people have done with this frequency that we don't like. And for those of us who have experienced money wounds, probably inherited money wounds, often through belief systems, I am really looking forward to releasing this old concept of working hard for your money. Productivity is something that I'm just like, I want to totally squash. And I was thinking about this the other day. I'm like, if I were to give a TED talk on anything, it would be ending productivity in like the 9 to 5 corporate concept of it. And anyone, and Tara and I are both, if you're familiar with human design, we are both projectors, and projectors tend to be able to get a lot of work done in a short amount of time. We're able to just crank that out and then have more time to do other things. And that's probably why Tara and I do so much.
Borderline too much, maybe?
Yeah. Yeah. But is it enough? Just kidding. But as a woman, when it comes to productivity, I find that it completely messes with my flow. Some parts of the month, because I am an observer of my cycle, and I need time to rest when I am menstruating. And I am forever going to be someone who secretly or not so secretly takes a half day to rest. I'll put in a couple extra hours to prepare for this, but I'm like, I'm not playing this game of having to be hyper productive and killing myself, literally slaving away. I did a lot of random research to prepare for this episode, and so I was kind of like, I have no idea what's going to come out of my mouth today. But one thing I learned, because I do have ancestors from Eastern Europe, the Slavic region, and I had no idea that Slavic, it means slave. It means slave. I come from the people of, and we've seen it in like almost every culture, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So, okay, that was a loaded answer for a loaded question.
But I think it's right on track, right? It's talking about breaking the cycle, right? Something that's not working, what we want to get out of is that programmed consumer mindset, that hustle culture that's like, we need to be going and we all need to be going at the same time, at the same rate, on the same days. And it just doesn't make logical sense. We know that there are people who have more brain activity in the evening than they do in the morning. So to force them to wake up super early to get to a job and it's just, it keeps us blind and asleep to what we have access to inside us. And that's the whole freaking point. So if we're stepping into this new world, yes, money is definitely something. The patriarchy is definitely something. Consumer mindset, capitalism, those are things that we need to dismantle and rebuild. And the hard thing is, like, when we look at such big, broad, vast issues that have so many variables in them, and we think about who we are and how do we change that, right? It does come to free will. It does come to choosing where you spend your money, choosing how you consume things, what you consume. What's going to make shifts is when we as a collective choose something that aligns with our values, our collective values. And I think we're all stepping into this phase, right? Gen Z is fucking out there like crazy. I love it. And we're all noticing like, yeah, if we just all choose to like not do that thing, then guess what? There eventually policies, government is going to change because they want to make money. So if you're not buying or if you're not showing up, they'll switch, not because of the betterment of people or the earth, but because of the betterment of their pocket. And like ultimately, yeah, we don't want to do that in the long run, but that's the first shift, right? Is by being conscious of your choices and saying, I am not going to choose oppression. I am not going to choose this unjust system or spend my money this way. And as we go into this new world, there may still be money exchanges, but it's understanding that there could be more than that. Trades, offerings, being able to play with your money in a sense that's like, hey, I will offer it to you in a different way or with a different exchange in order to suit everyone, as well as being harmonious to what you need and that energy exchange. So something that I was called to talk to, and I mentioned it with Victoria, is that we are two white women talking about spirituality. And, you know, there are so many different cultures that hone in different skills and tools. And I feel that because of oppression and colonization and the stripping of their cultures, we're left with two far ends of a spectrum where it's people who are continuously appropriating cultures or over harvesting certain things because it's like the in thing to do right now, or the complete opposite where people don't want to talk, experience, or serve in this way because they don't want to appropriate. And I think what's really important to say is, as we step into this new world, we want to step into a world where medicine is for everyone. So I shouldn't have to be scared to use a tool because it's not originally from my culture. However, the key and most important thing is to pay respect and honor where it did come from. And that comes with not claiming this information or this medicine as your own unless it's something you genuinely honed in, harvested, and communed with before offering. So as two white women, we understand that we're coming into a place that has whitewashed a lot of cultures and spiritual concepts and tools. And we don't take away from that, but we're also not claiming that any of this information is ours. We're sharing our resources and we're sharing what we've learned because we want to share what's resonated with us so you can find the exact formula of this tool from this culture and this idea to find what resonates with you. So stepping into this new world, it's about taking the moment in whatever way suits you to honor where it came from, but you're allowed to access that medicine, those tools.
Tara, I'm so glad you're bringing this up because I know it's a really touchy subject that we've been hesitant to bring up thus far, and now feels like the right time, right subject. There's no denying that there's a spiritual war happening. Given everything that's led us to this point today, we are on the front lines in this spiritual warfare. And I bring up spiritual warfare not as a way to scare anyone or to bring fear, although it is quite scary. And if you begin to look at things from the lens of this being a spiritual warfare, and what I mean by that very specifically is that there is constantly ways in which fear is holding us back from our power. And so, if you start to acknowledge all the ways that fear infiltrates into your subconscious and steers you away from yourself, from your true essence, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
And I think too, when you talk about us being on the front line, I see that. So it is our job to get the resources and share what we can, spread that to those who don't have, right? And in a way that, yes, honors us through that energy exchange, but in a way that is accessible to all. I mean, that's one of the main reasons we started this podcast, was the concept of let's cultivate these ideas. Let's hold this frequency for free for everyone. You know, and it's not easy work and it's not quick work. It's just the two of us doing everything. But we do it because we want to give as much as we can, knowing that we do have privileges that others don't. And as we step into this new world, it's about understanding where you stand in that line and what you could do to pass it back to the people behind you. And not fight, but like push the people in front of you to say, hey, we need more. I'm not saying it's not enough. I'm saying we literally don't have for these people. So I'm giving what I can. Can you pass it back? Right? So there is such a shift that's coming, but it does start with you showing up to create a new world. You choosing to pass the information, you choosing to honor that culture and teach others about it. That happens by your choice, not by the government making policies.
Say that again. Say that last sentence again.
These changes happen by your choice, not by the government's policies.
This whole hierarchy of people based on their skin color and gender is all part of the Great Divide. This is the spiritual war, the Great Divide, all of the ways in which we are divided, us as one, separate, equal, one. And today's episode is dedicated to merging this divide in whatever way we can, energetically, physically, out in the world. And I will do everything in my power to amplify all people by standing in my truth, anchoring in my energy, knowing that we can't be on the front lines or in the trenches at all times either. Knowing that rest is actually part of contributing to war tactics. It's actually probably one of the first ways you can contribute to not feeding into this great divide or this spiritual war is to rest.
I am so glad that you said that, because when we're talking about making good choices and being on the front line, right? My brain immediately goes to boom, boom, boom. What we've been taught, that beehive, drone, just stay with everybody else. Boom, boom, boom. No, we are in cycles. The earth is in cycles. Society goes through cycles. Allow yourself the opportunity to rest and reflect, because when you rest, you have that moment of reflection, you can see where the next shift has to come. When we are continuously moving forward, we miss the opportunity to get off this cycle, this like, right? And say, okay, now I need to shift this way because this is where the alignment's going to come in next. Let me try this out. Let me pause. So I'm so glad you brought that up.
And it's actually, I literally am getting the term blood boiling, because our ancestors' genetics are passed through blood. Like it's blood that ties us to our ancestral knowledge that we may not know culturally what it is or how to do what we know how to do, how to heal ourselves or
Mm.
others or animals or whatever, or how to tend to the garden. Like, yes, thankfully, we live in a world now where there are resources for anything and everything, but that innate knowledge is passed through the blood, and my blood is boiling today.
Mm.
Well, it's funny that my blood is boiling because the other word that kept jumping out to me this week was poised, being
Mm.
poised. And I didn't really, it's one of those words that you hear and you know what it kind of means, but like, do you really know what it means? Then you go to the dictionary and you're like, there are like 5 different definitions, so it can mean like 5 different things. Um, I love ChatGPT. Shout out ChatGPT. It's been AI is something I've resisted for so long, and then I open up ChatGPT and I was like, "Oh, I see what this is." And I see how my consciousness is actually able to rest and tune in, and I'm able to better channel things because I'm not having to think about these logistical things that, not even Google can give me the answers to. So this answer is from ChatGPT. Um, but the term poised means having a composed or self assured manner, being ready or prepared for something, or being balanced and stable in a particular position or situation. It can also refer to being in a state of readiness or expectation, or having a graceful and elegant bearing. And I think right now, as we're starting to gear up and like really prepare ourselves for the front line, like I think we thought we were like in the front lines, but it's looking different. Strategies are changing, global agendas are starting to unfold. Well, okay, another shout out I think to Gen Z is they have completely dissolved the veil. And I think this
Mm.
has had to do with way more of what's happening universally speaking, but I think societally and culturally speaking, Gen Z is like, "Phew, no more veil. We're not doing it. You can't hide any longer." I think the millennial generation got to experience the burning, slow burning of the veil. And Gen Z came along and was like, "What are you doing with this? You don't have to worry about this anymore." So there's no hiding anymore. And here's the thing about hiding and when it comes to free will and agendas of the quote unquote elite, even though I don't want to call them that, the powers that be that try to control us and hide us from our own truth and steer us away from our own divinity, they are required. We are all required actually to put our agendas out there. And that's why we see this rise in things like The Simpsons predicting the future, other things that have been quote unquote, deemed conspiracy theories, but it's happening in front of our very eyes. So how can it be a conspiracy theory? We need to get rid of that term because it's bullshit at this point.
The concept of poise, of being ready and intentional and set for the next movement, that's probably why it's been coming to you, because having poise, right? Grace, which means compassion and understanding and ease as we flow into this next phase, right? Understanding that your choices need to be intentional in order to create the reality that you want. And if we create a collective reality that suits all of us and is allowing us all to step into our truth, we can hold that poise. We can feel ready for the day, for the year, for this lifetime, because we've created a world and structures that are suiting us and allow us to flow through cycles and frequencies and make shifts when needed.
One thing that really stuck out to me was the idea of a collective reality, because not everyone is like us. Not everyone wants to evolve. Not everyone is here to experience expansiveness and unconditional love and everything else. I mean, even pleasure, right?
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that that's not every soul's journey. And so a collective reality gets really tricky to conceptualize because it's hard for us to even understand the power of our own individual reality.
Mm.
Even though, is there a difference between an individual and collective reality?
Well, I think you're right, right? Thinking of the whole collective, yes, collective reality is difficult. But when we think of collective reality a little bit on a smaller scale, in the sense of creating a community and creating the reality within that community as a collective, right? So we can have, and we see people who are in the collective of fear, like you were talking about, and living in that fear. Yes, there are outside sources that are cultivating that fear, but you can choose. And it's helpful, like we've said many times, to not do it alone, as a collective, as a community, as a partner, even starting small, to do something different and shift. I think for me, it's more about shifting that perspective, right? We've talked about relationship villains. So it's choosing to perceive your reality differently so you may make choices that best suit you. So if someone is really pissing me off, I can choose anger and fear, or I can choose to look a little deeper and say, are they a relationship villain? Is it my triggers? Whatever, whatever, whatever. And then choose the choice that's going to align myself with joy, align myself with, authenticity to move forward. And then those painful moments, yeah, it'll still be difficult at times, but it'll be a place that you could feel grateful for. So that's, I think, I'm glad you made that connection there, because I think collective is tough. But start with yourself, start then with your community. What can you give back to your community?
I've noticed on social media there has been a lot of shame placed on those who have gone deep down the path and found themselves as an individual, because I think, especially in America, we've seen folks go so far down the individualistic pathway that it is so hard to see anything other than self, their own
Mm-hmm.
self. And that's why I love Tara and I mean, we keep reiterating that yes, and yes, learn yourself, understand your gifts, understand your energy, but then with the intent of contributing to your community.
Mm.
And that part I think is missing for a lot of people. And whether it be they went too far down the rabbit hole with plant medicine, or their ego just got so inflamed and wrapped up in some bullshit that it's almost like, well, actually, this is a good segue into the topic of spiritual bypassing.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if you're not aware what spiritual bypassing is, it's using spiritual tools and teachings to avoid psychological issues, traumatic wounds.
Right? It's using those spiritual tools to avoid, as opposed to using them to shed light, and then you doing whatever soul work it is that you need to do. And I think with that comes toxic positivity, right? That there is no room for light and love, or that there is only room for light and love, and that you can't look at the hard and the trauma, that you just got to let it go and cleanse. And it's like, that is not doing the work. That's not helping anyone, because all you're doing then is going to project that out in your reality and lead this snowball down the hill even further. Or there's this spectrum of being selfish or selfless. And there is a space where you can step into doing things that people deem as selfish, spending time alone, resting, whatever. What that's really actually not, because by taking care of yourself, it gives you the opportunity to take care of your community.
Well, I like that you're putting it on a spectrum, right? Because when you're on either end, the likelihood of you being in avoidance is is possible. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what most people have been conditioned to perceive
So taking that time to know yourself, right, is not selfish. And that allows you, right, if we're talking about creating the new word, creating choices based on your values, based on your beliefs, that means you need to know what the fuck your values are, bro. Like, not what society wants you to do or your family lineage is telling you you need to do, but what resonates with you, what brings you joy, right? So you got to take a moment and say, who do I want to be and how do I want to feel? Right? Not what do I want, but who do I want to be? How do I want to feel? And align your choices with that truth. I think when we're able to make true choices is when we're able to create a reality that resonates with us. It may not resonate with everyone, but it'll resonate with you. Then you could start looking at, how do I create my reality in terms of the relationships I have, the job that I do, the medicine that I cultivate in my being and give that out, whether that be through a spiritual business or your everyday life of just being that person, sharing your medicine, right? Being able to create routines that work with your cycles and your frequency, being able to create community. And I think something about creating community or creating these routines that really was sticking out to me is the fact that we want things to come to us, right? We play this manifestation game and I love it and it's great. We play with the law of attraction, but sometimes you got to go out and get it. And I think community is one of those things, right? For a long time, I've wanted a certain community and I sat and I waited very patiently. And I was like, where's this community? And then I was like, wait, but if I'm literally going nowhere, how the fuck am I going to meet anybody in this community? So it's about going out, putting yourself out there, saying what kind of people or what kind of things bring me joy that I can cultivate. And it could start with creating a community of eating meals together with like-minded people. And when you're able to tap into yourself and learn your frequencies and learn your cycles, can you then find community in like-minded people?
Or, I mean, like-minded enough where you still have very different views. Like, take us, for example, Tara, right? Where we do not operate in the same way. Yet we are still, I think because of this podcast, we are getting the same downloads and we're getting the same visions. But I think it's really important to embrace people you don't agree with. Have an open heart and an open mind and learn from them, learn from their perspective. Opening yourself up to new perspectives is one of the most soul nourishing things you can do for your evolution.
Absolutely. Thank you for clarifying that, because you're right. We're not pigeonholing our beliefs into only hanging out with people with that belief, the same thing. But find something you have in common, like you love gardening, right? And then you get to have that connection and community of something to build on together. But also you can learn from each other and give each other new offerings or new energetic gifts. But when coming to community or routine, something that I was really called to talk about is motivation. And when we're choosing something different, when we are making new routines or setting new foundations for what is to come, sometimes we get stuck in this cycle of, I'm not in the mental headspace to do something that is good for my mental headspace, so I never get in the headspace to do that thing. And something that's so important to note is chemically in the brain, motivation does not come first. You need to push yourself to start the routine, to get out of your comfort zone and meet someone new, to learn more about yourself. Then when you get the happy hormones that set off in your brain from getting the pleasure, the joy, the community, motivation comes after that. And it's this cycle of, I have no motivation, I push myself, I have all this motivation, and then I get to this plateau where I need to shift again, right? But learning to play with your frequency in that way and say, okay, did I lose motivation because it's no longer resonating? Or is it just because I need to take it up a notch and like try it a different way? So when we're talking about this new world, be mindful that it's not going to be as easy as choosing something different. You need to intentionally push yourself forward. And that's why asking yourself those questions, who do I want to be and how do I want to feel, will help you decide without the motivation, what is the choice that's going to be aligned with my truth?
What is the choice that's going to be aligned with my truth? And when you start operating from the world of what resonates with me and what doesn't, you get really quick answers in which direction to go, who to be around. And you don't take it as personal when people are no longer in resonance with you. Something that came to me recently in the Earth book, we always reference, it seems like, um, was this idea of our physical bodies are containing these very complex DNA codes, and energy is constantly flowing through us. And our physical body needs to go through some changes in order to hold more or higher light frequency. And oftentimes, the fastest path to holding this light frequency is through heartbreak. And heartbreak is one of the most debilitating, dismantling, talk about crumbling. It completely shatters your energetic heart center, where when light begins to enter, and I think there is some sort of saying that's like, your heart break, your cracks open to let more light in. I know I'm saying it without much emotion, and those who have experienced it know how real it is, and the scar tissue that's even left over after an experience like that. But okay, taking our physical bodies aside, our physical bodies are this vehicle, but if we start to think of it in terms of how we commute or get around, think about when you're a child, you're riding on a tricycle and you have these three wheels that keep you steady. You haven't really figured out how to balance yet. And so you get to a point in your spiritual journey where you're ready to, well, lose the training wheels or the third wheel, and you're then on two wheels. In order to get to that point, your body has to go through this growing spurt of understanding your equilibrium, your balance, and it prepares you for the next step, the next vehicle to get you to your next point in your evolution. Your physical body, when it comes to what you're experiencing, having downloads or aha moments or seeing light or spirits or whatever is happening to you that seems like it hasn't happened before. Your physical form is going to change. And I often think that weight gain tends to be something that we see when a huge upgrade is happening and you need to be grounded in your body. So if you are on this spiritual path and you're opening yourself up and you're having just out of this world experiences, and I think some other good examples could be waking up between the hours of 2, 3, 4 a.m., not being able to sleep, seeing angel numbers every day, everywhere. So many signs and synchronicities will come your way when you're at this point in your evolution. Okay, Tara, one thing I'm really excited to talk about today is the spiritual business world. And you have a spiritual business. So I'm really curious what your take is on building a new world through spiritual businesses.
I think what's super important to recognize is we talked a lot about colonization and oppression and understanding that at this point or leading up to this point, only the wealthiest were able to access a lot of like the major medicine or ceremonies outside of indigenous people, right? Because they got stripped of their culture, their shit got took, and white people were like running rampant with it and didn't want to give it to anybody else. So as we step into this new world, I think what's super important is we've talked about money being an energy exchange. And I think no matter what you're doing, whether it's, a freaking garbage person or a spiritual business person, understanding that the energy exchange needs to be harmonious. So from a spiritual business aspect, I can sit with myself and figure out what is a living wage for me, what is a living wage for the area, right? To make sure that I'm getting what I need in order to survive, to pay my bills, to feed my pets, but that I'm not limiting my medicine to those who can afford me at that price. So I think something that's really important coming into this new world with any offering, not just spiritually, is sliding scales, right? Being able to say, hey, this is the minimum based on my resources, time, and energy that would be a harmonious exchange. But if you have the means to pay up to this is like the max I would feel comfortable, and then it would be an unharmonic exchange. If you can give me closer to the max, please do, because that allows me to then do things, other offerings that are maybe free for those who can't access it. So not just sliding scales, but having tiered offerings, right? Hey, this is going to be the most money because it requires the most amount of energy and resources. But I can tier myself down to give free content or very minimal money or energy exchange content. So that way, those who need the healing, those who need help and guidance and the work, have access to it. So moving forward with any business, but specifically spiritually in healership, thinking about why you're doing it. And if the answer is just for money, you're not going to feel satisfied. That exchange isn't going to be harmonious. Stepping into that space to say, this is my medicine. As a teacher, even showing up and saying, this is my medicine. No teacher, I can only speak for America, but anywhere in America gets paid enough. But we do it because it's our medicine. And we know that the exchange we get back of helping this youth guide and grow is a harmonious exchange. Although teachers should get paid more, like that's why we still show up. And I think a good resource for that, because we love sharing our resources. It ain't just our medicine. Radical Healership. Both Victoria and I read this book, and it's specifically about healership work, but I think it could be looked at for anyone who's starting to hone in their whatever medicine and want to offer it to others, because it really makes you look at the why. Why am I doing this, and how can I best serve myself, not being selfish, but best serve myself to serve the community? And I think as we step into the new world, having things that serves the community is key.
One thing I've always admired and respected about in Japan, the culture is such that there's respect for you regardless of what your position is, what your job is. From a doctor to like a ticket tender, you respect everyone equally. And in America, we are seeing folks, steer away from jobs that they used to feel like they needed to work in order to survive, and branching out to offer their medicine in different ways. But I think one way that the new world could really be equitable and successful and have more people living in their passion is by having just better quality jobs. I think that's been part of the control tactic, is to have really shitty jobs available to us, or not really available to us, especially those who live in smaller towns and don't have access to very many options. And now, thankfully for the internet, we have lots of options. But if technology is not something for you or that resonates with you, I guess I'm just saying this to branch out, to think about jobs in, I think, a different way, that instead of working for the man, you work for you.
And your community. Yeah. So I guess when we're talking about braving this new world, it really is just honing in with yourself and figuring out what resonates, figuring out what your medicine is so you can access that and share it. Something that we talked about last week in intimacy that we didn't touch upon. We didn't touch upon those in the sex work industry. And in this new world, sex work could be your medicine, your healing. But it's about being mindful with those energy exchanges and making sure that your energy is safe, you are protected, you are cleansed. And if sex workers are mindful of that and we start setting the foundation of, yes, we need spaces where we could be safe to access our medicine and share our medicine. And we also need that exchange to be harmonious enough where I can take the time to recharge, cleanse, and protect myself, because they will be exchanging with more than one partner. And sometimes you don't always get to choose.
I'm really glad you brought up the topic of sex work, because I think the major difference between what we talked about last week in, I guess, to sum it up, hookup culture, which is just kind of willy-nilly having sex with whomever you please in the moment because it feels good and experiencing that temporary high and pleasure. Sex workers, when done with intention, I mean, there are very clear boundaries in place and expectations of the outcome, and the exchange is known, it's talked about. And in hookup culture, it's rarely talked about until someone catches feels, and then you want to talk about dating, and then you get disappointed and yada yada. You know how it goes. But that's, I think, one thing that we can learn from sex workers is that they're going about it with intentions and boundaries.
Absolutely. And that's how we need to step into this new world, is that our jobs, our relationships, our quote unquote hookups are intentional and aligned with our truest choice, our true beliefs and values. So, Victoria, we have all this, starting a new world, shaking down all the old. What's the core? Boom, boom, boom. Let's hit them with the steps to move forward, because when you have kind of a more structured step, can you recognize, where am I on that path so I know what's my next right choice?
First things first, tune into your vision and your imagination when it comes to picturing the new world.
That's the who do you want to be? How do you want to feel? Envision it. Envision it.
And then 2, take action.
Right choice. Simple as that, right? Choose based on that vision. Don't fucking choose what they tell you to choose.
3, collaboration.
That's the step I feel I'm at right now. With Frequency Broads, with starting my spiritual business, with starting a women's circle, I feel like I'm trying to cultivate community and collaborate, because we cannot do it alone.
4, equity and justice.
I think that's what you were talking about passing down the resources, right? Pass what you have, share with others, have sliding scales, have tiers, right? When you start that community and collaborate, think about those who have been wronged, who have been oppressed and stripped of their culture. How do we honor those and move forward as a group together?
The next one to consider is sustainability. And I work in the sustainability industry. Before I get into the whole environmental perspective on this, I think it's important to note, how do you sustain your energy? How do you look at, when you give of yourself, how do you measure how much energy you have to give, and start to look at your energetic currency as a way of you contributing to the world or to your community? And when it comes to looking at sustainability from an environmental perspective, I think first things first is educate yourself on all of the greenwashing that takes place in consumerism. I'm very easily able to see through all of that bullshit. And I really want more people to become educated on what some of these terms or these certifications or whatever marketing tactics are being placed and greenwashed. And um, there are a lot of great resources online. Um, but also developing a deeper connection with the earth, I think makes for a
Yes.
sustainable future because you respect the planet on such a deep level and you don't want to do any harm, and you start to think about every little thing you do and how it contributes to waste or consumption and just your footprint on this earth.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, if we've been talking half of this podcast about all the things that aren't working, we're not in harmony together, we're destroying other people, we're destroying lands and animals. The new world is about finding harmony. And how do we do that is by respecting every being. And I'm talking like Earth is her own being. Respect the tree and the bee and your cat and that rat. I'm on a fucking rhyme. Look at me. I'm Dr. Seuss. Hey. But for real, like if we want to step into this new world of harmony, you got to be mindful of the things you are consuming, the things you're a part of, and what footprint you're leaving behind.
Mm. All right, the next one, number 6. This one's for you, Tara. Education and awareness.
Education and awareness, baby. We talk about how you could take this information and share it with others. It's not appropriation unless you make it that way, right? Honor them, educate people. This is where the medicine came from. This is sustainability greenwashing, right? Like, and don't just do it to people who you think are going to understand it. Educate everyone. And if they don't get it, then that's okay. That's their problem. Educate them anyway.
And number 7, perfect segue, persistence.
Oh,
Knowing it'll take time, I think, is one of the hardest things that we are grappling with here. And all of the obstacles we're faced with. But staying true to yourself, understanding your medicine, your resonant frequency, I mean, that's what gives you the fuel to keep going.
mm-hmm. And knowing that you may not have the motivation to keep pushing forward, but it is so freaking crucial to do it.
Thank you, listeners, especially those on YouTube, which if you are listening on YouTube, you can like, share, and subscribe. Words I never thought I would be saying and be putting on the internet, but here we are. We really do want to grow our channel. So every like helps, every share helps. So if you know
Mm-hmm.
someone who might be inspired by the information we shared today, send the link to your friend or many. Send it to your mom, send it to your grandma.
And in the comments below, we would love to hear what is your vision for this new world, right? If we want to create a collective consciousness, that means we want to hear from you.
Oh, yeah, baby. Oh, yeah. And also the question that Tara, you asked earlier on, who do I want to be and how do I want to feel?
Mm-hmm.
Who do I want to be and how do I want to feel in this new world? Because the new world is here. It's happening right now, baby. Thank you so much for listening today. It is always an honor to provide you with this juicy content that flows through us. And we are always so excited to have you here as part of the Frequency Broads community. Next week will be our final episode of the season. So
Woohoo!
tune in. We love you so much.
Love you.
Ciao.